It's not just that one thing, it's a culmination of 20,000 things that have happened before. And then to be met with that level of dehumanization,
Some of the things that were in the job description sounded a bit odd in terms of person should not be married or not have kids. And I thought, isn't that a bit discriminatory? But I thought, whatever, I was young at the time.
we often get told, oh, but that's, there's a precedence for that. This idea that if we do this for one person, well, I don't know if it's going to be fair for anyone else. Welcome to Unspeakable Leadership, a space that transcends time, borders, and barriers to reclaim our stories as women of color, leading in organizations, communities, and in our own lives. I'm your host, Rohene Bouajram. With a 20-year career trajectory of leadership, an aspiring storyteller, mom of a son and a fur baby, first-generation immigrant, and uninvited guest in Canada, I want to thank you for being on this journey with me. Let us grow together in conversation. Hi there. Throughout our time together, I have really reflected on what I think you and I and everyone are doing as part of this journey. For some of us, we're coming to some pretty important truths that we are acknowledging and then perhaps debunking and demystifying. And for others, people are bringing their own stories as perhaps lessons, hopefully not to be repeated or at least to be learned from. Our next guest certainly embodies that in how she unveils how masking and deciding not to, as part of crossing the line, became a big part of not just her own journey, but how she helps others on their journey as well. She takes us through what I can only amplify from her words as radical self acceptance, something that you will hear throughout not only her stories, but at one point in her time with us. Now, I do have to ask you to take great care as you hear and listen and watch her words, because she visits some really tender moments of her past. And I'm very grateful for what she was able to share with us. You see, sometimes when we revisit parts of us that were buried or perhaps suppressed, it brings up a range of emotions, especially when they're filtered through a mask. I know that has been my journey at times too. And to take up that mask is a huge, huge act of courage. To decide to just live as you are. So as you listen to this episode, I hope that you will also perhaps ask yourself, what mask do you need to let go of? And how can you do that with support? See, to make that decision, it's a big one. And as I've mentioned time and time again, we don't have to go through this journey of unlearning alone. So sit back, or if you're walking with headphones in your ears, take that stride. And I hope you'll enjoy this conversation with me and our next guest. And as always, I love hearing from you. So drop me a message or a line to let me know what is shifting within. Enjoy. I'd love to tell you a little bit more about our next guest, Ammara Wood. Ammara brings a unique blend of lived expertise and professional training to her work. As a late diagnosed Black woman with ADHD, she understands firsthand how neurodivergence and hormonal shifts intersect to create invisible challenges and remarkable strengths. Her strengths based, trauma informed approach helps clients and organizations move beyond survival, turning overwhelm and executive function struggles into confidence, clarity, and authentic thriving. with certifications in ADHD coaching, menopause support, and neurodivergent accessibility. Ammara's workshops and coaching blend science, storytelling, and actionable strategies, empowering audiences to rethink menopause and neurodivergence in wellness or workplace settings. Ammara, thank you so much for joining us on season 4 of Unspeakable Leadership. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic! I've been listening to your podcasts for from the very beginning and been totally hooked on all the storylines that you've produced and your guests and such a variety. I am honored, absolutely honored that you have invited me to join you for the season. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ammara. Like honestly, that is affirming because there are very few people who I know have been with me from the beginning, and I know that you are one of them. And so to finally be in the same space together to have this important conversation is one that I've been waiting for in my heart, and then so excited that it's manifested right now for us to have it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart too. I I have to start because, you know, just even reading your bio, um, there's so much in your bio that is both said and not said.
Mm.
And I say that because every time that I read anyone's bio, I know that there are stories and there are milestones behind each of those. So perhaps you can, start us off with tell us about your leadership journey and the woman that you've become today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, I'm going to start at the very beginning because
Mhm.
it would be remiss of me to not to give you my history. So my journey started as really a misunderstood girl with ADHD. Didn't know at the time. Always the underdog, regularly dismissed in terms of my successes. And yet I was able to surprise others with my resilience and my skills. And by the time I graduated university, I'd actually lived in 4 different countries. So the the challenges and the skills I learned from being able to start over and adapt again and again um, really gave me strategies that I could project onto future experiences that came later. And but one of the things that I recognized is that I often needed to mask in order for
Mm,
true self, like constantly hid my true self so that I could actually fit in to all these new spaces and places. And of course, with
yeah.
very few people that actually knew who I was, and I felt,
Mm,
not to have to. I don't know if the words to say put an act on, but
mm,
often feels that way, and it is for protective purposes, really. And sometimes it's quite
yeah.
unconscious. So, if anybody's had that experience, it's valid and valid to continue to do that as well. And yeah, so for over 15 years, I worked in higher education, rising to progressively senior roles. But it wasn't until I took on a business analyst role, involved with like consulting and IT work, that I truly felt that my strengths actually matched my responsibilities. You know,
Wow.
this time my analytical skills and holistic thinking, attention to detail, pattern recognition actually became assets and not something annoying, So that was wonderful. Actually, let me pour my energy into projects, succeed and then pivot onto new ones. So, without having any time for boredom to set in. So it was perfect for me. Um, I'd say that once my children were diagnosed as neurodivergent, everything shifted for me. Uh, in sort of learning more and supporting them, I began to question and wonder, could this be me as well? And I sought clarity for myself, and ultimately, yeah, I was diagnosed with ADHD. Um, I'd like to say that it had both positive and sort of some negative aspects to it as well. But say that the revelation led to deep relief. Some as well as why wasn't I supported in the ways that I needed, but definitely um, a curiosity, about who I really was, beneath all of the years of masking, and definitely just ignited a drive to redefine my career, and my entire life really on my own terms, and
Oh,
this led me to where I am today. It really pushed me to become an ADHD coach and menopause specialist, and definitely using my unique vantage point to embrace leadership and thrive through all the different life transitions and to support others to do the same, really. Um, as neurodivergent women and definitely women of color, we often have to create these types of transitions alone. And knowing that I can use my life experience to be able to support others was the way I needed to be able to move on instead of doing meaningless work. So yeah.
oh, Amara. I just, first of all, thank you. I think every time I hear anyone's response to that question, I'm always just lost for words, and then I have to remind myself I'm on the podcast, so I need to say something. But I'm finding myself lost for words again because you really speak to something that is so crucial, I think, in anyone's journey, that grief of coming to that, that level of realization and awareness, so that you tried so hard, you tried so hard to fit in, to adapt, to be this other person that people expected and systems expected, and then the grief of realizing how much you had to take on and put on without that support and without that understanding, and so it's just, it's so, and I'm trying to find the word, that's what I'm struggling with, like I have so much deep gratitude for you for turning your story into now a powerful space for coaching, for helping others, for empowering others, so that they too can see the possibility that exists. And perhaps, if you're able to reach somebody a little bit earlier, that they don't have to go through as much of the grief and the processing and the lessons that you have. So I wanted to really uplift that as I heard you share what you've shared.
Mm. I appreciate that. I want to say that as I went through the process, it was definitely feelings of despair, but ultimately realizing that had I not gone through those experiences, I wouldn't actually be who I am today. I wouldn't have been able
Yeah,
to achieve all the things that I have achieved today. I would also not be able
yeah,
to be the better parent to my children that I can strive to be. So,
yeah.
things definitely not a platitude to say things were meant to happen as things will be, but it's more of picking the moments of strength that I showed throughout
Mm,
time and knowing that I can continue to do that, and
yeah.
actually taking to giving myself more of a choice as to picking where I want to be able to display these strengths. Yeah.
Oh, that's empowering. Like to be able to reframe it for yourself and redefine it. Like that's huge, huge. So that the theme of the season is one that I've been really excited to have conversations about, and I'd love to hear in your words and from your perspective, what does crossing the line mean to you, and when did it emerge in your life? I think you've given us a bit of a flavor and a taste of that, but maybe you wanted to add more and expand for us. That would be great.
For sure, for sure. Um, so for me, crossing the line is sort of stepping out of silence and into radical self-acceptance, really. I'd say that there wasn't a single dramatic moment, but rather a series of painful, sometimes humiliating sort of experiences, being denied basic workplace supports, despite, showing obvious need, feeling invisible when I was going through when perimenopause first hijacked my executive function and I didn't understand what was going on. There's that. And a story that sort of stands out to me that I feel I need to share right now is, um, yeah, so after a really frenetic morning, I just dropped off my kids at school. I rushed home and I had literally 15 minutes before an early meeting that somebody had booked in my calendar despite it being blocked off. Another request denied. Yeah. Um, I quickly rushed in to make a cup of tea, boiled the water, poured it in, and the teacup suddenly exploded. Glass everywhere, hot out, burning my leg, and just leaving just glass and water just dripping down the side of the counter. I struggled to, get tend to my injury and clean up as best I could, and then join the meeting late, only to be met with a perfunctory, "Oh, you should get that checked out," from my manager. Just, just like that. And then just followed on with the list of, "Oh, here's some urgent tasks that we need to get done, team." And I thought, okay, first, I had this feeling of being ashamed that, wondering, like, how could I be so clumsy? What is going on? Maybe, I just didn't recognize that my nervous system was just so overwhelmed, and the environment that I was in was completely unsupportive and absolutely submissive of my needs. And that was one of the moments when I realized that, I think enough is enough. And really crossing that line became not about, uh, it came from like not waiting for permission,
Yeah.
not waiting
Yeah.
for permission to finally take care of myself. That's what it was.
Oh,
And insisting that my needs are valid and my struggles are real, even if other people can't see them. So I must honor the fact that my disabilities are invisible, but it doesn't
yeah.
mean that they don't impact my way of living and the ability to be successful.
First of all, I think for many of us who are listening and watching, your story has so much resonance in moments in many of our lives where, like you said, the lead up to that moment is not just, it's not just that one thing. It's a culmination of 20,000 things that have happened before, and then to be met with that level of dehumanization, that's like for somebody to be like, "Oh, you should get that checked out," as if it's like some problem that you need to externalize, versus putting everything aside and saying, "Are you okay? Like, do you need some time? Let's cancel this meeting." Like, to me, that's basic level of care that workplaces should be providing their team and their employees and their leaders with, and that's what the leaders should be carrying. So it angers me. It angers me to know that those are the experiences that you've shared and that others have also shared, just because people don't see the visible aspects of disability, or even when they do see the visible aspects, there's still even that same level of treatment. And so I, in your experience, and I know that you're a coach and you're also somebody who does a lot of training in this area, What have you seen are some areas that can be areas of improvement and growth so that we don't have these experiences happening over and over again?
I feel that well, it's twofold, and definitely not going to start with the individual because the onus absolutely comes from the organization as a whole, and then leadership, and then the individual. Um, Society as a whole needs to revise the way they think about disability and whom of the disabled population deserves support over others. We absolutely need to take more of an intersectional lens when we're looking at this as well, and understand that um, somebody who, I don't know, just give myself as an example. Say I'm a Black woman, I'm a single parent, I am just multiply neurodivergent. Um, it's going to be that much harder for me to speak up and say that these are my needs for fear of being seen as incompetent, being seen as the angry Black woman, being seen as a person who's just trying to cause trouble and make changes in the office. So changing the way the organization and changing the way they see things, adjusting their policies, bringing on neurodiversity consultants that can then support them to go through and revise policies and make them widely available so that anybody can go onto the internet, log in, take a look at the policies, review the processes, make sure that they're clear, and know that if they are ready to do something and to ask for support, it they can see what's going to happen. So it's well laid out and how long it's going to take so that they know just how much longer they need to hold on.
That clarity is huge.
It
Like
is.
you're raising the importance of just like, people like to talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And you're really driving the importance of that. Sorry, I totally interrupted you because I was just like, I have to say this, but please tell me more.
No, no, not at all. Um, Here, where leadership comes in is always been policies, but it's just understanding that one has a unique role to play in interpretation of a policy and application.
Mm, hmm.
And it is an absolute privilege to be in a position of leadership and to understand that you can actually support people around you by simply, if you know that processes are unclear in your organization or policies are not widely known, to take the onus and read them and create a safe space amongst the team that you lead or support, so that people can come to you. And if you know things where people are struggling, it's not quickly to rush to conclusions and make assumptions of, well, this person is lazy, they're simply just not interested in work. But ask, be curious, and most importantly, provide universal basic support so that people don't have to ask for simple things like closed captioning, like taking meeting minutes, so that people can fully participate in a meeting and not be wasting time with their head down taking notes. Um, Providing a heads up when you book a meeting, not just an agenda, but literally saying that, I'm booking this meeting for um, a couple of days out so that people are prepared. And so the meeting is a waste of time as well because we all know that time wasted and talking about the same item over and over again not only does it waste time, it also means using up resources from people that don't have a lot to put out some days.
Yeah.
And yeah, so doing that kind of a thing. And if you can, in your capacity, allow a person to have a bit more flexibility in how they show up, when they
Mm,
show up, provide that without the person having to go ahead and disclose absolutely everything about them and have to go through HR.
hmm.
We have power in our hands. We can use it. Mhm.
Oh, you are dropping some truths here. Like seriously. Like I am like, yes, yes, yes. And I wanna really name two things that you've highlighted, Amar, that are so crucial. And that is privilege and power, right? The two P's that in our leadership and the journey, I think, for any leader is to navigate the edges of these two. Where do I have privilege and where do I have power?
Mm-hmm.
And I would add the third P that we often see, which you've talked about it around policies. The third P is often precedence. We often get told, oh, but there's a precedence for that. And if somehow we, divert from this precedence, then we're setting another precedence. And somehow that precedence is related to fairness. This idea that if we do this for one person, well, I don't know if it's going to be fair for anyone else. And the thing is that in our current system, we actually have space for multiple precedents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We just need to highlight the clarity that you've shared with us in terms of what's the criteria, what are some things for us to consider to be able to move forward in a different direction to interpret and apply the policy.
Mm-hmm.
But so many times, people are often, and I say this as leaders, but even I think individuals who work in organizations, we've been set up to believe this dupe that we have to do things the way that it's always been done, as if we're like holding the chastity and the honor of a past. And it's nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you're taking us, into a space of, crossing the line can be personal, right? It can be on that individual level, but it can also be organization and systemic, and then it can also be from a leadership perspective. And so crossing the line multiplies in its amplification.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, yes, give me a slice of that pie. Like that is where I want to be.
Absolutely. And I want to point out that you don't have to be in an actual leadership position.
Yeah.
Leadership can be shown in so many ways. Um, I can think about times when I showed leadership as a late teen, early 20s, and I was in an admin role really at that time. And this is taking me way back. I worked for the South Korean embassy before going to university, and
Amazing.
yeah, and it's going to seem a bit of this came to my mind this morning, and I thought I needed to share the story. Um,
Hmm.
Honestly, so I was hired to be the secretary to the ambassador. Started my job. I was super excited to go and do it, and I thought, wow, I've just finished my A levels. I grew up in Zimbabwe, um, and I thought, well, I told them that I was going to university within 9 months, and they were still pretty interested in me doing the position. So I thought, great. Um, the ambassador wasn't in when I first joined. He was only coming back, I think, 2 weeks later. So they used him to train me up for the position, and I learned everything really quickly. And then something just struck my mind that, well, some of the things that were in the job description sounded a bit odd in terms of the person should not be married or not have kids. And I thought, isn't that a bit discriminatory? But I thought, whatever, I was young at the time. Went to the position, and the receptionist then told me something really disconcerting, that the ambassador got a bit handsy at times. And I thought,
Oh no.
goodness, like, I don't want to be
Uh-huh.
working really like this. And I'm a young girl. Like, how do I handle myself? And of course, his
Yeah.
office was within multiple offices far away from everybody else. And I needed to be stationed with him. And I thought,
Oh
okay, how
no.
am I going to handle this? On
Hmm.
Before he arrived, they let me know that he was coming in, and this is what I needed to do. So I thought, okay. Well, I decided that night, the next day, I was going to wear the dowdiest outfit I could find. Really, 18-year-old girl. I was dressed in this really like way beyond like the most hideous thing even a middle-aged woman would wear. With ugly brown shoes, and I didn't comb my hair properly. Like I was totally wet. There was not a stitch of makeup on. I went in. He said good morning. I did all the protocol as expected. Stood up when he walked in. All of the things. Bowed down when I needed to. I didn't last 2 days. I got a call from the vice consul.
No.
The ambassador didn't like the way you worked, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to fire you. This is the first and only time in my entire life that I've been fired, and I knew it would happen, and I did it anyway.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
think about setting a precedent and
Mm.
the manner that you explain, there's also other ways. You can stick your neck out, knowing that something
Yeah.
bad could happen and befall you, but be completely okay with it. And so
Mm.
I'm tired after only being there for 2 weeks, okay, and then 2 days with the ambassador. He just couldn't stand the look of me, and I thought, that's fine. That is totally fine.
Yeah.
Um, it actually sent, uh, you know, a rippling effect within the event.
Mm.
Because I said to the vice consul when he called her, I said, thank you. I know as well as
Yeah.
that it's not about incompetence. And
Hmm.
yeah, I know, but I have to do this. I said, that's all right. That's all right. I accept it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Later, he called to say that the ambassador had been transferred back to South Korea into
Mm.
their post, and a new ambassador was coming in,
Yeah.
and there was an opening in the reception area. He said, would I like to come back? Well,
Wow.
unbeknownst to me, he had actually gone to report the previous ambassador to his superiors and had him removed.
Amara,
Literally 18 years old.
like that's your resolve. Like that is how strong you are. And can I just say, there's moments where in what you just shared, like we giggled, but there's also moments where I felt my heart racing because there are unsafe environments that many of us have had to navigate. Sometimes as young as, like you said, at 18 years old, needing to weigh the costs of I need this job, I need to be earning money, um, but I also certainly don't want to be accosted or have some gross, perverse person that I work with, and especially if they're in a position of authority, um, have this level of access. And so constantly weighing that and then needing to make a decision on which one will have to just take the precedence for yourself at that moment in time to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we don't always have, like you said, like we don't always have that person who will stick their neck out, right? Like that, like the vice consul. Like we don't have that person. Sometimes there are people who are very much enablers in the systems that we are in, who are very much trying to maintain the status quo. And at times it's you stay or you don't. Like keep up with the appearances or goodbye. And so I just I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your honesty and in sharing that story. And I'm so glad that you did because I can't help but see the brilliant woman that you are in front of me, the woman who has had to, yeah,
Appreciate.
honestly, it's okay because I'm like sitting there, like, I had tears coming down my eyes. I was like, oh my God, like just the brilliant woman that you are. And when you started off our conversation about masking, like it's exhausting the constant code switching, the constant masking, the constant need to pretend, like, performance is fun at times, but if it's every day, it's not fun. Like, that's just not, that's just not life anymore. And so I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate you embodying your coaching, even in how you express yourself and show up. And I know we could go on and on, and I it's my hope that we will one day, with another episode. I i i do want to bring us to a bit of a close. And I think there are people who are going to hear your words, who are going to wonder so much more. And we do have a range of listeners, women of color who are well into their leadership, perhaps even, coming to those same crossroads that you did, of wondering, wait a minute, you know, do I need to go and check? And do I need to perhaps and ask if I can have a diagnosis? Or we also have women of color who are starting their leadership journey, who are the young 18-year-old who needs to make some different decisions. So I have two final questions, and that is, the first question is, looking back now, what would you tell either of those women, or the range of women, to think about as they're perhaps standing at the threshold of crossing the line?
I would say to take stock of your gut instincts in any space or environment that you go into. Um, know who is an ally. It's not somebody that works directly with you. It could be somebody in a different department. Absolutely, network, get to know other people that are in similar situations as yourself. If you feel that you're not ready to get an assessment done and to find out, sometimes it's a little bit of a, what if I am, and then what am I going to do with that information? Um, okay, talk to more people that might have already been diagnosed or on a similar journey. Um, join some support groups if you can as well. And these are all things that I also provide in the community as well, in terms of people coming together that have similar stories. They're looking for that connection, which is really important. And that safe space to simply just let that, take off your mask, toss it in your purse, and just be yourself. Um, so that's really important. And as you go through, you might feel brave enough to go and find out. I want to say that you actually don't have to receive a diagnosis. Self-identification is valid, and know that diagnosed or undiagnosed or self-identified, you have needs, and they play in different settings. They may be the same in no matter the setting. But knowing what those are, where do you struggle? Where are your challenges? What things are you really good at that you don't even need to think about and you just do them? Those are the things to take. And notice over time if these challenges get more and more difficult for you to be able to overcome. Those are the things to mention when you're in those groups. When you I offer a free exploration call, half an hour. You can come and talk to me. We can break some things down. My goal is always to be able to provide a first step, because it could be that you may be ready to work with somebody like myself. It could be that I can refer you to somebody else, because you may need to maybe look into counseling first. You may need to talk to a medical practitioner first if it's in regards to perimenopause. Um, so please reach out if you're looking for support. There's no sister should ever be left behind.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I appreciate that you've broken it down in action steps, and what feels like a framework as well, in really seeking better, more understanding, and more clarity. Ammara, I know that those who are listening and watching often want to connect in with our guests. How can they reach you? And is there a call to action that you have for them?
Absolutely. I would. You can find me on Instagram. Rohene will probably post them in the show notes as well. But my handle is blissfully, as in BLISSFULLY underscore ND, with ND being short for neurodivergent. So at blissfully ND. And my call to action would be to go inward about the inner child, that little girl that had all these big dreams and hopes. Come back to the present and deliver those dreams and hopes to that little girl. Know that she matters, you matter, and there's people behind you to provide that scaffolding so that you can get there. Don't wait. Cross that line. Cross that line. Join us on the other side.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I feel like we could do an infomercial of like, come on over. Like I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Ammara, thank you so much for being here in just so much honesty and so much just both a range of emotions, that I'm just feeling just based on our conversation. And it's really in us, I think, being in that both and that we can have some phenomenal, powerful conversations. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on Unspeakable Leadership. Hey, my sister. As I think about how to stay connected, I invite you to subscribe to my newsletter. I promise I will not bombard you with daily emails. Good gravy. I shudder just even thinking about it. Subscribing by visiting my website is how you'll receive exclusive updates, podcast features, and thought leadership curated with you in mind. I hope you'll join me on my newsletter. Take care.